Well, hello, people. My name's Darylk, and I'll be your host for today for the DISC Leadership Workshop, Identifying and Inspiring Different Behavioural Profiles. I've got a few people who've joined us early, which is great, so I won't get started until 4 o'clock, but I'll just take you off mute for a section just to introduce yourselves, because I'd like to really hear what attracted you to actually come to this workshop in the first place. So I'll just do that now for you. There we go. So Jenna, Joe, Jordan, Lauren, Rita, and Sky, and I'm not too sure, and Rachel as well. Can you hear me over there? I'm assuming you can. So one of the reasons that people come to this particular workshop, mostly they want to learn about different behavioural profiles for either managing different behavioural profiles or for sales, for example. Or just curiosity. It's used in hiring staff, in sales, and also managing primarily. So I'll just unmute you all if you'd like, so you can unmute yourselves if you want to. There we go. Okay. So behavioural profiles. What is a behavioural profile? And that's probably the first question we'd like to answer. It's actually a profile of how a person behaves, pretty simply. So one of the reasons I love this workshop so much is that when I do a live workshop, about halfway through the workshop, I can actually feel a penny drop with participants. I can actually get hairs on the back of my neck rising as the aha moments pop out. So I hope that's what you're going to get today for yourselves as well. It is a workshop, and by the definition of a workshop, means that the more you participate and actually answer questions, the more you actually get out of it. And I'll give you a chance to actually ask questions throughout the workshop as well. So please don't be afraid to unmute yourself when invited and actually ask a question or two, because you'll get more out of it that way instead of just watching the bouncing ball on the screen, if you like. So without further ado, let's start to get into it. I see we've got a few more people joining us right now. So a behavioural profile can be described in many different ways, and here's some words that you can see on the screen that might describe a behavioural profile. And I'm hoping for many of you that you've had a chance to actually complete the DISC behavioural profile. There was a link in the email that you got with the Zoom invite. If you haven't, that's okay. You don't need to use it for this particular workshop, but it's helpful. You'll see for those who've completed their DISC behavioural profile online at Macro's website. It's a free test, takes about 15 minutes, and you'll get an email sent to you with the results. Sometimes it ends up in your spam folder, so particularly if you've got Gmail, have a check through there. Some of the words there, we're looking at the DISC behavioural profile as a way of looking or quantifying a person's behavioural profile. There are other ways you could do it. Myers-Briggs is another tool that is quite commonly used, and there are many other different psychometric tools on the market to use it. I like DISC because it's very easy to administer online. Like I said, 15 minutes, 24 multiple questions. And for those who've sat it, you'll probably notice it's the same question asked 24 times. So we're trying to get a trend of results. So the results, Myers-Briggs, DISC, about a 4% difference in results when you look at them. Now, the one of the things that you'll see with a DISC behavioural profile, it puts people in one of 4 different boxes. We're actually a combination of all 4. But if you look at your highest number on your score, you might find that you might, in the high D, for example, you might see on the top left-hand corner of the screen these words such as competitive, demanding, results-orientated, assertive, decisive, tough, independent, and impatient. That might describe Donald Trump, for example. Steve Jobs is another behavioural profile. These are people who are very task-orientated and fast and can be impatient. In fact, they show anger as their first emotion when things don't go to plan. The next one is on the right-hand side, top right, you've got the influencer or the high I. And these are social, spontaneous, talkative, energetic, visible, friendly, carefree, emotional types. So these are the people that you might see, again, fast-paced, but more people-orientated. They like to be the centre of attention. Who could be some divas, for example, would be, you might say, a bit like that. So Dolly Parton would be a good example. The next down the bottom is we've got the more steady, slower paced people. Now, it doesn't mean slow meaning as in slow-minded. It actually probably means a bit faster. They're actually a bit more conservative in what they say. They mind their words before they speak, which is sometimes a very helpful thing. So these behavioural profiles, we've got steady, accepting, caring, persistent, supportive types. And these are 42% of Australia's population, and these are the helper bees, if you like. They become good nurses or good people on the help desk line. They get things done. They're also a bit like a poker player too, so you won't know when they're stressed. Then we're going to go into more detail with these behavioural profiles later, but I'm just giving you a bit of an overview before we dive deep in. On the right bottom hand corner, we've got the highly compliant type of personalities, and these are the analytical, detailed, task-orientated people who are quite a bit slower, more conservative, and the biggest fear is making a mistake. So you might say an accountant would be in that box, hopefully. You might find a brain surgeon in there, or an engineer, someone who's engineers can fit in the S box as well, and other boxes. But their strength is their compliance or attention to detail. All right, so it's a bit of a taste there of what a behavioural profile might look like. How do we get our behavioural profile? Well, our behavioural profile is learnt behaviour. So if you look at the picture of the brain there, we've got the amygdala there, but if we take it into another more commonly talked about a process at the moment, we talk about having environment stimulus come into our body from our eyes, from our ears, from a touch, whatever the six senses are, and they come into what you might call the first gate, which we'll call the reptilian gate, which is essentially, it's about survival. So is that person going to eat me? Can I eat them? Can I perhaps procreate with them? Or can I safely ignore them? Is the conversation that's going on in your head at that stage. And it's like about a 5-second decision-making, or even less than that, before you decide which box that person or threat sits in. So it's a survival instinct, if you like. And you would have made that decision up probably within the first couple of seconds of turning on this webinar, Zoom meeting, and looking at me, whether you're going to listen to me or not, or for example, if it's of interest to you. So when we're managing staff, we want to get people from being emotionally invested in making a decision to a rational decision. And that's when we get a bit more sense from the person we're managing. In sales, we can make a better sales decision. And when we're in staff as well, of course, we want to make sure the person we're hiring is actually going to be a good fit for the job that they're doing. So the first stage in the reptilian mind is we want to get past the stage of the person fearing us in the conversation and actually being open to listening to us. That's the first gateway in behavioural profile management tools that we look at. So you might say body language is one way of, or first instincts or first impressions that people get when they look at somebody. For example, if I'm smiling at you, there's a tendency for you to want to smile back and be open. If my arms are open and I'm showing you my hands, I'm not a threat. So you feel more comfortable with me. If I'm crouched over and grouchy and showing my bottom teeth, you're probably going to get a bit freaked out by looking at me. So you will turn off and you might find that you become more defensive. And the conversation becomes a second conversation in the person's mind. Is that person, am I in trouble? Am I going to lose my job? All these little words and voices come into the conversation to the person you're talking to and disrupt the rational mind from actually thinking about what you actually asked them. What might be something totally unrelated to that particular topic. The next gateway we talk to is the mammalian brain, or the mammal, which is in the center in this picture. And you'll see that that's where the emotions are stored. So we've got past the survival instincts, and now we're talking about learned behavior on reacting in such a way that the person doesn't even think or comprehend they're reacting in a way. They go to their most usual habits of behaving or reacting to stimulus without even thinking about it. And it might be appropriate for the situation. It might not be. So you might say Donald Trump talking to Maggie, Mother Teresa, for example, would be an interesting conversation because if Donald Trump didn't adapt to Mother Teresa, Mother Teresa would get rather annoyed with Donald Trump and probably turn off and walk away. So what we're talking about is using, when you're talking to staff or hiring staff or customers, it's about adapting your own behavioural profile or your communication style to put the other person at ease when they're communicating with you. Once you've got to that point, then you'll find it much easier to have a rational conversation because the person is not having their own emotions get in the way of the thought process. We all do that to a certain extent, but we're trying to minimize how much emotion learned behavior comes in and might not be useful to the actual conversation we're having. So today we're going to talk about how we get through the mammalian brain, the emotional part with behavioural profiles. We're not going to talk about the reptilian brain. That's plenty of books on that. So how do we get our behavioural profile? And am I stuck with it? And is there a good behavioural profile or a bad behavioural profile? Well, quite simply, there is no such thing as a bad behavioural profile. It's what's appropriate for the situation at the time. So we can adapt our behavioural profile in circumstances. But long term, if we keep adapting to some behavioural profile we're not comfortable with, there's a lot of stress. And so it's like giving up cigarettes, for example. It's really quite confronting and hard at the start. It takes a lot of habit and repetition before you can actually feel more comfortable with it. So getting a behavioural profile is very much as this picture I've got on the screen. So firstly, as a baby, when you woke up, you need to get fed. So you took on a way of getting fed. Has anybody got any children in the group? That would probably be a good question to ask at this point. So if you feel like, you can unmute yourself and just answer the question. Has anybody got any children in this group?
Yes.
Yes.
And how do you, fantastic, good. How do you know when your child wants to get fed? How do they show you?
Scream.
A scream, okay, good, yes. Any other ways?
Go to the cupboard.
Go to the cupboard, yep. Some babies will point to their mouth, for example, or point to the bottle to show that they're trying to get that. They're aiming for going to the cupboard, as like you said. So there's different types of behaviours that might come into play. So whatever worked the first time generally is what the baby or child will go back to doing. Now, what didn't work, they'll generally stop doing it because it's just a waste of time. Now, as you become a teenager, we also go through a very big adaptation. We want to belong to a tribe or a group, now, whether it be the rebels, the sports people, the nerds, the gangs, or whatever. It doesn't matter what group it is, but whatever gave you social acceptance to that group at this first part, whatever we're talking about or behaving in a certain manner, being in the class clown, for example, whatever got you social acceptance generally starts to be reinforced because you felt, oh, okay, that works, I'll give it another shot. So after a while, it becomes a habit without you even consciously thinking about behaving in that manner. And when you get to become an adult, you've got to pay bills. You've got to behave nicely in the office, else you'll have no job. So you have to adapt there. And after a while, that adaptation becomes so subconscious or so ingrained that you don't even realize that it's starting to become your toolkit, if you like, your go-to toolkit in the workplace. As I said before, there's no right or wrong behavioral profile. But if you look around your office, you'll see lots of different styles and combinations. I'm hoping that the person who's looking after your books or your accounting, for example, has got that high attention to detail, who's putting their finger in the dike to stop the leak in the wall. The person who's in charge of your HR, I'm hoping, has good empathy and people skills. The person who's a leader doesn't necessarily have to be Donald Trump style. That's only one style. In fact, all styles can lead and lead very successfully. You'll find support roles, and you'll find there are people who are quite innovative and want to challenge the status quo and bring companies into spaces that they've never been, like Steve Jobs did. People who work for Steve Jobs talk about him being very much a whoever, if you speak Italian, we say rampapala, but essentially somebody who is quite tough to work with, high standards and very impatient. But he took a company, it was very much a nowhere company at the start, into new ground, invented new products that were quite amazing for the people that work for them. And they were very proud to be connected with the brand. At barbecues, they talk about what they've been up to, and there's a sense of pride for the business going into those uncharted territories. And it's for many people in that company, they wouldn't have had the courage themselves to be part of that organization without someone like Steve Jobs leading the charge through. So there is a value in that behavioural profile. There's a value in all behavioural profiles, which we'll go into soon. Now, I said before, can you change a behavioural profile? Well, yeah, of course. Jung talks about 17 different life-changing events that will help shape your behavioural profile through your life. There's probably more, could be less. If your house is being, if your house got caught fire, for example, and inside your house you've got your pets, you've got your kids' photos and your kids, if you've got a big fear of change or adversity to danger, you would just probably drop all that and run into that fire to get those kids and that are most precious to you. So you would adapt in that circumstance. And as I was saying before, adapting long term can be quite tiring. So if you put somebody who's an accountant with high attention to detail and very conservative, wants to know all the facts before they make a decision, into a telemarketing role where they're forced to pick up the phone without knowing who they're really talking to, enough about the prospect, it's about a numbers game, where they actually find out what's going on the call, it's more spontaneous, they might find that quite stressful. And you might find after a couple of weeks of trying to do it, that they would get sick, or their stats would drop off, or they would quit. And so in recruitment, we see that if we don't get the right behavioural profile style to the job, we can find ourselves putting a lot of stress on people. Now, people are great at adapting, but I would say that if instead of trying to adapt and be somebody that you're not, it's sometimes better to play to your strength. Look at the strength of your behavioural profile and put yourself in a position where you can leverage that. And you'll be a lot happier, and you'll get a much better results, and hopefully a higher pay packet for yourself. So let's have a look at our next slide. And this is a breakdown of those 4 behavioural profiles that we spoke of earlier. The driver, there is Donald Trump, fast and task orientated. So you can imagine when you listen to somebody on a phone call, you could hear whether they're a fast talker or a slow talker. So the fast talkers, of course, would be on the right-hand side of the slide, which is the driver and the influencer. Whereas the slower, more conservative talker would be on the left-hand side, and they would be more calming. So then we look at how the person communicates. Are they a bullet point conversation? Is it very task-orientated? Or is it more engaging? Are they a good listener? On the steady side, bottom left. They're talking anecdotes. Is their CV lots of paragraphs instead of bullet points? It starts to give you clues on where that person might sit before you've even had 30 seconds in recruitment. We usually get trained to work on getting that core behavioural profile. So for those who've actually completed their behavioural profile, could I ask if you've got that in front of you to drag it out and have a look at the top scores on your DISC behavioural profile report. Now, as I said, you don't need to have this report to do the workshop if you haven't had a chance to sit it. But from here, you can start to see where you might sit with your highest score in your DISC behavioural profile. So can I ask, has anybody got their behavioural profile report with them? If you have, I've just I've given you a chance to unmute yourself. Okay, Sky, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Good. Fantastic. Good. So there are sometimes when you set the behavioural profile report, you can overthink it. So your numbers might be very close to 50 or thereabouts. And that's sometimes from people who've done the test a few times. or they try and take a bet each way, or they don't understand English that well, or they're Buddha. So that's so just take that into account. And if you feel free to sit that behavioural profile test anytime you like, give it to anybody you like to. It's free. There's no strings attached to it. It's just a good guide to help you understand your strengths. And I find it good for job seekers who are trying to understand how to enunciate or verbalise their own soft skill strengths in an interview. Okay, so hopefully you've got your top score there for the ones who've got your report. And let's go forward. So again, there's that the task-orientated people on the right-hand side, the drivers, influencers, and the compliance and the steady. So I'm going to show you a picture now. Oh, actually, I'll show you a video. This might. Let's have a look at this situation here. I want you for a second to imagine a husband coming home to see his wife after a long day at work. And he comes home and he sees his wife has prepared the house, cleaned the house perfectly. She's got home early from work herself. She's got a glass of wine and she's sitting on the couch waiting for her husband to come home and talk about the day. He comes home, sees his wife on the couch and thinks, okay, and goes into the shed and the man cave and starts tinkering. Now, what's happening here? The wife might be thinking, gee, he doesn't really love me. He doesn't want to talk to me. He doesn't want to share a relationship with me. Whereas the husband goes into the man cave and starts tinkering to do things around the house, task-orientated things. So the wife, being people-orientated, is expecting a conversation, a relationship, and expects love to be shown through that way. Well, the man in this case is showing his love by getting things done. So he's more task-orientated. By helping, he shows his love. And he'll be thinking in the shed, my God, that wife of mine, she's so lazy. All she does is sit around on the couch and drink wine all day. Doesn't she see how hard I'm working? Doesn't she love me? Doesn't she respect me? Now, they both might love each other, but they just expect love to be shown or communicated in a different manner to their behavioural style. And that's the thing we have with behavioural styles. Everyone thinks they're right. Everyone thinks from their perspective. And as a manager, we know there's so many different behavioural profiles and styles out there. And as a salesperson, we know that as well. And a HR person too will come across them. So it's about blending and adapting to the other person, which will get you a better communication and a better inspiring someone to move forward than actually maintaining your ground and being your own behavioural profile. Because sometimes the message just won't get through because there'll be just too much emotion in their mind. Now, when you're addressing a group, it's pretty hard because you've got so many people, different behavioural profiles. So you've just got to be who you are, I think, in that circumstance, and they can take it or leave it. So let's have a look at the lift here. And I'm going to ask you all a question. Can you imagine for a second that there's all four of those behavioural profiles are trying to get into a lift? You've got the impatient Donald Trump. You've got the attention-seeking influencer. You've got the steady, helpful S, and you've got the highly compliant C. How do you think if you've got four people outside a lift waiting for it to come up, the high D, the driver, or the dominator, the impatient dominator might behave? How would you pick their behaviours? I'll just unmute you all now.
They'd probably be pressing the button a lot, maybe fidgeting.
Yeah, very good, very good. Exactly. They'll be like press to make their lift come faster, even though it's not going to make any difference because they've got to get somewhere. And because they're the most important person, they'll be the person who takes charge. Very good. Now, once the lift opens and everyone gets in the lift, you've got the high I, the influencer, the person who wants to be the center of attention. Suddenly, they're in their element. They're like, yes, I've got a captive audience now. So how do you think they'd behave?
Look around, make eye contact, smile.
Good, yes, that's right. True, Victoria. They could also start talking to random people, cracking jokes.
so not
sometimes
me.
That. It's funny in this workshop when I do it live. I can actually pick the behavioural profile in the audience before I've even seen anyone's test results. Usually the high D, the dominator, is sitting there with a mobile phone trying to multitask while they're listening. You've got the influencer who wants to steal a microphone. And then you've got the high S behavioural profile, the poker player, if you like, who they generally, if they ask a question or voice their opinion, they'll just go quiet and will probably end up falling asleep. And then you've got the highly compliant person who disagrees with everything, because it's like, why can't people just go from be black or white instead of having this grey bit in the middle? It's quite funny to watch. And we all have a good laugh at each other about halfway through the workshop when people get it. So the high S, this high S behavioural profile, you could be seen as a martyr. So somebody who really wants to help people, and many times at the detriment of their own self. So how do you think a high S might behave in the lift? If, say, for example, lift is full and somebody else wants to get in.
They'll wait for the next lift.
They'll get out and wait for the next lift. Yeah, they will possibly walk 12 flights of stairs, and so the other person can have their spot. And the highly compliant person, the accountant type, how do you think they might behave once the door's shut? Their biggest fear is making a mistake. So you might find they might be counting all the people getting into the lift and weighing in their mind how heavy they are, and looking at the compliance score on the elevator to see the maximum number of people or weight that the elevator can take. So good. All right. So when we do our workshop, we have an exercise called the cup exercise, where we separate people into different groups, and we ask them to assemble the highest stack of cups on the ground within 3 minutes. Have one guy with a blindfold, and the rest of the crew with giving instructions to the poor guy with the blindfold, and to race to see which group can make the highest cup. Now, at the start, everyone seems to revert to their own behavioural profiles. You find one person wants to take charge, one person wants to sit back and watch other people, another person suggests some ideas, another person shoots those ideas down. So, but when you get into the actual game and near the end, when the clock's about to actually, the deadline's about to meet, and you're doing the 10-second countdown, there's a massive rush where a sense of urgency comes in, and people suddenly adapt to becoming all very task-orientated and urgent, if you like. And it ends up, sometimes it works and many times it doesn't, but there's usually a rush of people adapting because it's a competitive environment. So circumstantially, we adapt, and sometimes here we've got the situation of the clock ticking on this particular exercise, and the guy on the left who's barking the instruction is actually a very shy guy. He adapted to take charge in that circumstance. Let's have a look at behavioural profiles. Can I ask the group, which of the 4 behavioural profiles would you what are some words that might classify these people? When you look at these 5 people, what are some words that you might use to describe them?
Celebrities.
Yep, celebrities, they are, true.
Powerful.
Powerful, yep.
Assertive.
Very good.
Confident.
Confident, good, yep. Good. So many people would see these as people as task-orientated, and sometimes Kerry Packer in particular quite stubborn, you might say, or you might say forceful or dominating or domineering, and even Russell down the bottom right-hand corner has been classified by that in the past. These, would you say these people are more task-orientated or people-orientated?
Task.
Okay, good. Do you think they're fast decision makers or slow decision makers?
Fast.
Fast.
Fast. Good, good. You left in no questions about what their mind is saying. They'll tell you straight away. Good. So fast and task orientated, we call that the high D, the dominating behavioural profile. So the outstanding characteristics of a driver or a high D behavioural profile is that they need to direct. So they want to be directing people, they want to be taking charge. And sometimes that's appropriate, and they might be good in a war, for example. Winston Churchill would be fantastic in the war, but after the war is finished, probably not so much. He probably might annoy more people than he actually saved. But he would make the hard decisions, and collateral damage would be part of the score. They're challenge orientated. They've always got to have a challenge. If there's no challenge, they just won't be bothered. So if you're managing someone who's like this, you've got to keep giving them a challenge. You've got to up the bar or give them a game that actually stretches them. Whatever it is, if it's depending on their experience, it's something that's got to be bigger or newer than what it was the day before, because they have a strong desire to win. So a bit of rivalry invented somehow, usually against your own competitors, not internally, would be helpful for them. Or trying to beat a personal best, or you can imagine the rivalry from Steve Jobs, for example, against Bill Gates, getting the first phone out or getting first to market was pretty important. And they're very direct communicators. Now, that doesn't mean they're bullies. In fact, the next day is a new day for them. Everything's forgiven. All they care about is, can you get the task done? You made a mistake? Okay. Admit it, fix it, and do whatever you need to do to make sure it never happens again. That'll keep them happy. And the next day, new day. Because they've got, and that's a new day and they've got to forgive and forget, because they don't want you to harbour a grudge, because then you won't be able to get their task done. So you'll find they're very forgiving if you are good at resolving tasks. If you're not, and you're continually being a foot on the hose, they'll get quite frustrated and angry, and it'll be quite visible in the office and be quite scary, because they might act like a tank, where it's like they're looking, who's the problem? You're the problem, and it becomes a witch hunt, if you like, as they try to solve the problem. And if you're that person, it's not pleasant. So what is the value of a high D behavioural profile, would you think, to the team? I'll put this question out to you now. A driver or a Donald Trump or a Steve Jobs type personality, or a Kerry Packer or Russell Crowe, what's the value that they might bring to an organisation? Why have them in the team in the first place?
They're results driven.
Results, good, yep.
Efficiency.
Efficiency, very efficiency focused, yeah. Very true. They put a high value on time.
Comfortable to be heard.
Yes, good, good. So they're open to sharing ideas.
They motivate others.
They're a good.
I missed that one, sorry. Can you repeat that? Lost you. Okay. So, bottom line organizer, some people might say in the past when I've asked this question. They're very, they're self-starters. They're forward-thinking. As we said, places a high value on time. They're challenge-orientated, competitive. They initiate activity. So they like to get things started and moving forward. They challenge the status quo. And they're innovative, and they're quite tenacious. So they actually represent 8% of Australia's population. You might think it's more because they're louder and more obvious to see, but it's actually a pretty small component of the not just Australia's population, but actually the world's population. So let me just see. Can you hear this volume?
No.
No, yeah.
A little bit, okay. All right. So this is, for those who ever watched Married at First Sight, I think it was one of the actors, Justin, or one of the partners, I think you might say. Now, he is a typical high I, very much a busy, work-orientated, too busy to have a relationship or settle down type of lifestyle. So we're starting to see a bit of a high D in, or one type of high D in life. So I like it when I'm doing these talks about different behaviour profiles to think about people around you that you're actually managing yourself or coming in contact with, because you're going to come up against these behavioural profiles all the time. It's, as I said, there's 4 different behavioural profiles. If you've got a room of 10 people, you're probably going to find that there's going to be a combination at least of 2 of each, usually, or 1 or 2 at least. So would you say this behavioural profile is extroverted or introverted?
Extroverted.
Yeah, very good. People or task, we've decided task. Would they be direct or indirect?
Direct.
So when I say direct, you could also imagine their body style when they're not just when they're talking, but also when they walk. So a direct person will go from A to B. And they're very much like a boxer in their style. It's like I'm charging forward. So again, a tank, you might imagine. What do you think they might be looking for from others?
Efficiency.
Usually getting a task done. Efficiency, yes, good, very good, exactly.
Results.
That's
Yeah.
results, yeah, good. So if you've upset a high D, many times people with different behavioural profiles try to make excuses, and you might have a conversation where the high D might say something like, "How did this happen?" Or "What's the answer?" And if they get a response like, "Well, I'm not quite sure, but I think it might have had something possibly to do with I don't know, really." How do you think they're going to take that response?
Not well.
They're going to get frustrated. They're going to get angry. They're going to keep pushing for an answer. And in that pushing, it's going to appear like they're bullying you. But what they're doing, they're trying to get a stable ground where they can actually make a decision on, okay, what actually happened? Where's the problem? Where did it start? So they're looking for some certainty in the conversation, a fact that they can actually start building a solution from. And if they've got vagueness or they've got wishy-washy answers in their mind, it's just going to inflame the situation and frustrate them because there's no efficiency. It's not direct. So if you're talking to high D, you want to adapt to picking up the pace and being direct as well. How do you know when they're stressed? What emotion might they show?
Anger.
Frustration.
Yeah. Unmet expectations equals frustration. Too much frustration equals anger. Very right, both. Okay. What do you think their buying style is? What type of things might they buy?
Expensive things.
Expensive things, ego-driven things, status-driven things, innovative things. They want to be the first with it. They might not want to buy the product that everyone else has got. They might go for the roughie, if you like, in the mob. So they call it their own decision instead of following the mob. Driving style on the road. How do you know that you're driving behind a high D?
They're tailgating you.
They drive fast.
No, they'll do both of those, yes. They'll probably have a few speeding tickets, yeah. So good. How do you think they might decorate their office?
Minimal, like clean.
A little bit messy, but not too leave. With trophies, true, yes. Wins that they've made, things that they can, status-driven, good. What would their goals look like if they set goals?
Big.
Ambitious.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. What are their goals like?
Ambitious goals.
Ambitious, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. That's right. Yep. And many times unachievable for those who are working with them around them. But in their mind, they believe if you shoot for the stars, you'll get to the moon. The gestures, I missed that one. How do you think their hands might appear? Where would their hands be when they're talking?
In front of them.
In front of them, true. Yep.
In front of your
You
face.
might find them in front of your face. Let me tell you something I don't know. Listen slowly. Yes.
I think
Very
their
good. Very
hands-
good.
Their hands on their hips, maybe.
Hands in the hips, yeah, that's true. They'll be leaning forward a bit in your face, if you like. And they might be taking the room up too. They're like, oh, look at me, I've got this whole space. And they actually enlarge the space, spreading the legs and their arms to own the space, to look bigger. Good, okay. Which it can intimidate some people. How do you think their letter writing style might be?
Direct.
Very forward,
Direct.
to the point.
Concise.
Very short. Well, have a look at, we've got an exercise later on where I'm going to ask you to actually write a letter, a short letter, an email, in the style of a high D. So I'm asking you to adapt to be a high D. To give you a bit of a hint here, the shortest CV I've ever seen as a recruiter came from a high D, which essentially was one line. I'm the director of blah, blah, you figure it out. So very good at over delegating and under instructing. They think, well, I'm not going to belittle you or by telling you the detail. I'm going to assume that you're as good as me. So I'll tell you the bare minimum and you figure it out. You take control, because everyone's like me, is in what they're thinking in their mind. Their organizational style is pretty practical and minimal. How do you think their risk factor? How do they like risk? Do they love risk, hate risk, avoid
Yeah.
risk?
Love it.
Love it. Yeah, love it. How do you think they might treat rules like policies and procedures?
They probably break them.
Yeah, they're very much a rule breaker, challenge the status quo. And the challenging thing about managing them is that many times they're right, because they will use whatever the ends justify the means sometimes becomes their motto. So it can be dangerous sometimes if you're managing them, because sometimes the ends don't justify the means. It's setting boundaries or expectations is important, and repeating them back to them if they step outside that line. So your values, your organisation is very important. Then you can lead them back to it. Stance, I think we've talked about how they stand already, so I won't go into that. How do you think they might talk on the phone? If you're getting spoken to by a high D, is probably the right way of saying it.
Quickly.
How would you know?
To the
Directly,
point.
yes.
Mm.
To the point. Exactly
Loudly.
right. Loudly. Yeah, possibly. They mightn't say much, but you'll know that they're in the room. They'll be the ones. All right. Now, I promised you we'd do a up here, so I'm going to give you a challenge, which I hope you can read out to me, a couple of people's examples. I'm going to give you all of you about 2 minutes to write me a short email, and hopefully you've got a pen there or a piece of paper, or possibly both of those to come in handy, or an email. I don't expect you to send it to me, but I'm hoping that you could put together an email that you're going to send to your team members in the style of a high D, a direct dominating person, asking them to give you an update on the appreciation luncheon that they're supposed to be organising for their sponsors and donors. So have a think about how a high D might write that email. Now, before you get started, can I ask, what are some of the elements do you think that email might have in them?
Be short.
Short. Yeah, good.
Questions.
Very good. Questions. Yeah.
I
Possibly,
don't know whether
yeah.
to write. I don't know whether to write please or not.
You probably wouldn't write please.
All right.
You don't need to. In
Not
your
many
style,
nice.
your own personal style, you might write please because you think it's good manners, but a high D, not necessarily.
I think they'd miss all the hi, hope you're all well kind of part and go straight into the can you let me know right away?
Very good. Very
Closed
good.
questions.
Exactly. Good. Good. Has anyone had a chance to actually write one yet, or you still?
Yep.
All right. What do you got?
What's happening with the appreciation luncheon? Update required by 1700 today.
10 points to Gryffindor. That was fantastic.
I've tried to write it 4 times and I cannot write please. Every single time I write please. I can't not write please.
It's hard, isn't it? Trying to adapt to be something that you don't feel comfortable with. And you can imagine if you're a high D, and there are some people who are high Ds in this group, if they got this email, which I've just shown on the screen, they would love it because it gets to the point they can get onto the task and not worry about spending hours trying to decipher what you're really trying to say in an email. Who actually is a bit annoyed by this email?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What comes up for you when you read it?
I think it's rude.
Rude. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say that. That's true. Does anyone actually give? Doesn't matter. Can give or take it.
I love it.
You love it. Good on you.
I like it. I've received.
Why do you love it? Why do you like it? Sorry, go on.
I've received these emails. You get used to them
Yeah.
after a while,
Yeah.
and
You get
you
used
just
to 'em,
accept
yeah.
that is the person's communication style, and you respond accordingly.
Yeah. Good.
I'm not
And
a
you
fan
respond
of sending
accordingly.
them. I don't like to send
Yeah.
them, but I've received plenty of them.
Oh.
Very clear boundaries.
You can imagine. Very
you know
true.
what you're being asked and when it's expected to be delivered.
So it's give me, it's about an update of the appreciation luncheon by 5 o'clock today. It's 5:00 today. There's no please, there's no hello everybody, how was your weekend? There is no names mentioned, and do you notice, I mean, why would you bother not putting a name in the person you're addressing it to in an email? If you're a high D, you're sending an email that you know who you are because you're going to get the email. So why should I bother saying hi Fred when it's fred@telstra.com.au I'm sending it to? You know who you are. So in their mind, they just want to bark out an order, get it done, move on to the next thing, which can really upset some people, can be seen as rude. And some people who get this email have said before to me that, well, if I get that email, I don't want to give you an update. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, stuff you. And that ends up completely going against the intention of the email in the first place to get the task done. So behavioural profiles can stimulate other behavioural profiles quite easily, unknowingly.
Can I ask, is
right.
that response, is that negative response to that a high D to a high D?
No, a high D would love a response similar in the brevity. If you responded back in bullet points, they would love that because they can digest it and get on with their other tasks really quickly. It's about speed and it's about brevity as well. If they get a response in bullet points and they look at those responses and see something's a bit vague or not complete, they will come back to you quick as anything to get clarification. So, and then they'll ask the detail after that. But the best thing you can do is not give them too much detail on the response. You want to say done, 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 or not done, or in progress, or will have done by this time. That's what they're looking for. Their will frustrate them because it means they have to slow down. All right. What do you think, if you're selling to them, what kind of closing gambits do you think might work well selling to a high D, somebody who's got a high ego? Direct. Yeah. Yeah. When I say
Direct
gambits, I
with
mean like.
Sorry.
Making them feel good.
Right. Go.
appeal to their the impression that owning this product is going to give them.
Flattery.
Yeah. Yes, flattery can work in a way. That's right. One way that works pretty well, there's two closes that salespeople talk about a lot, and there's the alternative close, which is you might know it as a chocolate vanilla, where you're selling ice cream to somebody, and you say, "Do you want the chocolate or do you want the vanilla? You choose." Now, you don't care which one they choose. You're selling ice cream, but it makes them feel like they're in power of the choice. So, and then there's a takeaway close. I'm sorry, we're out of chocolate. That we've only got one left, and it's probably a bit too expensive, and I don't think it's right for you. It's a prestigious product. It's not quite. I don't think it'll fit your budget. Take the vanilla, and guess what happens? The person wants the chocolate more. So that's appealing to the ego essentially. So the presentation style for a high D. What do you think might work well with them? If you're trying to, if you're doing a presentation of work to a group of high Ds, or walk into their office, what have you got to be take in mind?
Dot points.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
True. So people who actually talk about selling to high D or our high Ds talk about, sure, don't waste my time, but your product must appear credible. You and your product must appear credible. I don't need to know the detail. I just need to know that you appear credible, because I'm not going to go and read the warranty. It can also be difficult to switch from present trusted suppliers with a high D. They don't want to see too many testimonials or research data, so don't sell on testimonials, because they want to be the person that makes a decision, not based on what other people have said, because I don't know them and I don't trust them. They'll be impressed with an efficient business-like approach, and they'll take interest in innovative products. If you talk about how innovative the solution is, how it'll solve problems fast, that'll be attractive to them. I'll just speed up a bit because I want to get to the next behavioural profile before we run out of time. Let me just have a look at this one. These people, what are some words that might describe these behavioural profiles on screen right now?
Comedic. Friendly.
Comedic, yep.
Charismatic.
Love the
Charismatic,
spotlight.
yeah. Love the spotlight, good.
Social.
People or task orientated?
People.
Good, yep. People, very good. So these people love to be in the spotlight, don't they? The center of attention. In fact, their biggest fear, what do you think it is?
Not being liked.
Not being noticed.
Not being noticed, not being liked, yeah. So in sales, sometimes it might be a bit tricky because they might drop the price to get the sale. So you've got to be a bit careful with it. But conversely, when they're buying something, the first question I ask is, can I get a discount? These are the high I's, the influencers, the people-oriented, fast-speaking people. Now, generally, you might find them they're multitasking a fair bit, doing lots of different things at once, and they are easily distracted by bright, shiny lights. So keeping them on track is a bit difficult. They might not write things down enough. They might make a few mistakes and forget things because they get overwhelmed with the amount of small tasks they've got going on, and they'll usually laugh it off and talk themselves through it. Good empathy for people. Some people might think if you're a highly compliant person, they've got a low attention to detail. Yeah, true, they do. But their empathy and the reading of people is quite strong. So in HR, they'd be good. In sales, they'd be good too. In management, they'd also be good for that. 28% of Australia's population. Some outstanding characteristics of the high I, the influencer, is optimism, the need to interact with other people. Of course, as we've said, they need to be liked, and they like to be involved in stuff, and sometimes stuff that has nothing to do with them as well, just to be part of the team. And they're emotional, so as in like they show emotion. You know you're talking to high I because they leave their emotions on their sleeve, basically. They're terrible poker players. what would the value of these types of people do you think might be to the team?
Bring people together.
Yep, very good.
Positivity and high energy.
True, yeah, very good. They make the workplace fun. Fun is the key word. They're always looking for fun. If you've got no fun in the room, you suck at the fun out of the room like an accountant might do, they'll get really grumpy. They'll try to make fun and sometimes can create problems. What other things they might bring as value to the team?
A team player.
Team player, yes, very good, very good.
Motivational.
Positive atmosphere.
Yep, motivate others towards goals. Yep, very good. Okay, other things that they're known for doing is negotiating conflict and being articulate. So for those who've watched Married at First Sight, this might be an example of a high I in emotion. Okay, cool. So there you get a bit of a feel, quite extroverted person and not backwards and coming forward. People orientated, of course. And would you say direct or indirect when asking for what they want?
Direct.
Yeah, some people, yeah, it's circumstantial. Some people could say they can be a bit indirect too. And usually when they're walking, their style is a bit clumsy. They actually knock things over a bit more often than the high D might. They tend to walk around in kind of a circly kind of style instead of a straight, direct line. What are they looking for? We know they're looking to be liked. How would you know when one of these people, behavioural profiles, is stressed?
They're quiet.
Yeah, they could be quiet. That's true. Yeah,
I'll tell
you.
I reckon they'll be frazzled.
Sorry? They'll be frazzled, yeah. They're kind of all over the shop. They just don't know where, they'll be getting up from the desk, walk around in circles. They can't seem to focus on anything. And they might interrupt other people, if you like. Their buying style, what do you think they like to buy?
Compulsive.
Everything.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. They love shopping. It can be a thing. How do you think they might handle change? Do they love change or hate change?
Love it.
Love it. Yep. Driving style on the road. I've probably given you an indication with their walking style.
The way they walk.
They might have a few dings on their car. Let's just say that. So, they decorate their office. How do you think their office might look? What would they put in their office?
Everything.
Everything. Well, I love experiences. I love fun. So you might find some things that relate to that. The holidays are about to go on or been on, or little quirky, weird stuff. That,
their kids' paintings.
Could be kids' paintings, yeah. There could be a bit of that. That's true. Gestures. When they're talking, how do you know they're talking to you? By their gestures.
Very animated.
Yeah, they talk Italian. Their hands are everywhere. It's all as you saw with this lady here before when she was talking. She was really moving and animated and moving around. She wasn't staying in one spot. It was a moving target. The goal setting. Smiling, yes, true. Smiling means you get liked because people smile back at you. Their goal settings, how would you describe their goals?
Maybe unrealistic.
Yeah, to a certain degree, yep. What else?
Relationship.
Better in short term rather than long term.
Both those answers are right. Yes, a lot of short-term goals, sometimes unrealistic goals. Sometimes you might find that they'll never get done. They're not written down, usually. They're aspirational. And generally they don't like writing things down because writing things down takes the fun out of it. It means I have to do it. Their letter writing style, how would you describe their letters, their emails that you might receive?
Flowery.
Flowery. Yeah, bit of fluff. Yeah, true. Good. You might find the letter writing style is a bit more engaging, as in we saw the high D before saying "give me." They might be more about we and using involving words to involve people and make the conversation more fun. And sometimes can be a bit too long too for some people's liking. Organisational style. A bit messy, you might say, the desk, but it's not overly. But they'll know where everything is. But you might look like think it's an absolute mess, but to them it's okay. Their risk factor. Do they like risk or do they avoid risk?
Avoid.
Yeah, they've in many circumstantial for them. Like the high D loves risk, goes for it. So these people will sometimes avoid and sometimes go forward with it, depending on the circumstance. How do you think they treat rules?
Guidelines.
What rules? Never seen any. Rules, yeah. Never read the book. Don't know. Their stance, again, they're, like I said before, they're moving around pretty fast. Talk on the phone, again, it's very fast, animated and fun and engaging. If you're talking to a high I, what do you think they're wanting to do when you're talking to them? What's the best way to get the best out of them in a conversation?
Compliment them.
Talk about them.
Yes, true.
Ask
Yes,
their opinion.
true, both right.
Invite them to try.
Ask their opinions.
Have a joke.
Good. Have a joke. Yes, good. Good. Laugh at their jokes. Let them talk. Let them take the stage. Usually in the selling style, that's to selling to a high I, they talk themselves into the sale more than you need to. You don't need to be a pushy salesperson. So in the presentation style that's required, would you give them lots of detail or not?
No, they'll lose the details if you give them too much.
Yeah, they get it sucks the fun out of the room. They just want to hear how exciting it is and what colour you can get it in and how cheap it is. It is on sale. Follow-up service is pretty important for the high I. Why do you think that is?
Because you've noticed them and you've taken the time to see if they've liked what you've helped them buy.
Yeah, notice that's good. And there's another reason as well, which is pretty important.
Otherwise, they might forget.
Yeah, might forget. They're easily distracted. They'll easily be distracted on the next bright shiny light. So you've got to keep in following them up in a fun manner. Now, usually there's a rule of 48 hours. It's like the 5-second rule. If something's not done in 48 hours, it'll never get done. So the high I, you've got to keep the fun going, the momentum going, while they're in the decision-making mode. Otherwise, just go off to something else, and you'll be lost. What kind of products might they like to buy? How do you describe them?
Quirky, fun.
Yeah. New,
Latest
innovative,
thing.
showy. Yep, good. One of the presentation styles that works really good for high I's if you're in the office is actually allow time for socialising. So the high D can really micromanage staff quite easily, and that sucks a bit of the fun out of the high I. But allowing a bit of time for fun in the office, allow a bit of time for going out and having a coffee together. In fact, if you're going to manage a high I, you really need to take them outside the office every so often and just have a one-on-one coffee with them and a bit of a laugh. Now, you might not talk anything about business, but they'll bring it up if there's something important. So have a bit of fun in the presentation. Do you think it's okay to touch the high I on the shoulder or the back?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So kind of you're engaged. That's right. Some behavioural profiles, and particularly the accountant behavioural profile, you do not touch because they're task orientated and they're very stiff. And it's like, oh, don't touch me. It's that you're encroaching on my space. That kind of thing. So statements that motivate the high I might be something like, this product allows you or your company to lead the way in the future. The program puts you on the cutting edge of technology. Or you might say we'd like to showcase your business as one who's moving up in the future with the latest advancement. So if you use this product, we'll showcase you and your company and put them on a bit of a stage. So I'm going to cut to the chase with that exercise with the high I email. Here is an example of a high I email. I'd like you to tell me, why is this one different to the first one? What can you see in it?
They've individually named everybody on the email.
It's conversational.
Very good.
It's team.
Conversational, yeah.
I look forward to meeting everybody. That's really the connection that they want to make.
Yeah, good.
The use of exclamation marks after the names as well. You know,
yes,
it's exciting.
I love that.
Hey.
Exciting, fun, energy, the emoticons and all that stuff. When's the meeting?
Around 3 o'clock.
Why is it around 3 o'clock, do you think?
Because they're never on time.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Very good. Don't want to be so, how do I say, stickler. So it takes the fun out of it. So good. Get this type of email.
Sorry, we lost you there.
So yes, thank you. Who would like to receive this type of email?
Yeah, me, I'd like that.
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay. Good. So for the people who said, exactly, that's what I asked you now. So the people who said yes, have a look at your report if you've got them there, and tell me what, and ask yourself, you don't have to tell me, what your highest score is.
Totally defending the high I.
Yeah, 93%.
Off the chart, good one. And the lady who said no, what was yourself?
I'm actually a low D. I'm not. Don't come out as dominant on there, although I think I'm a bit more dominant than that says. But yeah, I just find at work I like to be more structured because we're busy, just get things done, you know. So saying something was around 3 o'clock doesn't work for me.
What was your highest score?
My highest one was steady.
Sorry, the
steady, closely followed by influence.
Did you say C? Did you? It's the highest one.
Steady.
S.
Steady.
Steady.
So whatever that is in the S. Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, so C was it?
S.
S. Oh, we got there. Thank you. Modern technology. That's cool. All right. Yes. Okay. So, usually, I mean, the S and the I have something in common. They're both people orientated, but the S is more structured and more likes to have a checklist and a plan to organise the day with. They like to have a list.
That sounds like me.
They like to get things done. They like to have big tasks, and they don't want the tasks changed too often. So as a high I, doesn't care about the task being changed. In fact, loves it, loves the variety. So if you're managing them, you give them lots of little tasks, and they'll have a ball. But if you give them one big task, they'll just get bogged down and get, oh my God, this is just getting tedious. Whereas the S gets energy from one task because they can focus the energy in getting that done right. Good. Okay. Very good. Interesting. Closers. Again, the alternate choice works really well with this behavioural profile. Put them in charge. Let them choose because they feel like they're involved in the decision making. So chocolate or vanilla again. If you're a manager of this behavioural profile, what do you think you need to take into account to help get the best out of them?
It'll be fun, engaging.
Yep. True.
Flexible. You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Be interested in them.
Be interested in them. Yep. Good. So we've talked about them having a lot of goals, and sometimes too many goals, which can mean if you've got too many things going on your plate, another goal comes in to your list. What do you think is going to happen to your original list?
Going to get scrapped. Yeah.
something's going to drop off the list. So if you've got too many things on, something's got to give. You either don't take on the new task or you drop a task that you had planned to do. So as a manager, assisting with realistic goals. Now, realistic is a funny word, but assisting with goals that can be achieved. And then we know that most tasks as a manager, or you know that things take 3 times longer than usually you anticipate. So making sure the high I can set realistic goals and work with on-time management. There's no such thing as on time. You're either early or you're late. And that's the type of, and most high I's believe that they can get there on time, and if it's a couple minutes late, it's not too bad. They can explain it away. But getting on time is a different concept. Early. Develop a friendship and make time for interaction daily is common. Open door policy. Yep. Where would you station them in the company if they're in the office?
In the middle.
At reception.
Okay, both are good answers. Why would you put them in reception?
Because they're a people person.
Yeah.
Welcoming.
And good, in the middle as well. So you station them in the people's area where they can increase and get the job done by being around people, so who can help them get the job done. What about freedom of movement? Would you allow them to walk around the office, or would you want them nailed down to their seat?
No, let them be free.
Restrict them.
Yeah, you treat them like an adult, so they can. You've given them a task, and you've the responsibility to get it done. And if they need to get up and walk around or whatever to do it, go for a walk to clear their head or whatever, sure. And you can be sure that the task is still in their mind, but they're just not. They might not appear to you as doing it. So set clear objectives of the task to be accomplished, and look for other things that managers talk about is giving them opportunities where they can be the centre of attention to use their verbal skills. So if you've got a role like that somewhere in your business, that might be the ideal person. All right, here's the high. What do you reckon this one is, the C or the S? How would you describe these people?
S.
Good. What's an outstanding characteristic of these people?
Reliable.
Stable.
Reliable. Yeah.
Consistent.
Some people call. Yes, true. Good listeners, exactly. Some people might say these are the nice people. Okay, so nice because they're not going to create conflict. They're going to calm conflict. In fact, these are the people that you won't know when they're stressed. So when they're stressed, they become poker players, which don't play against them. If you're a high I particularly, they on the outside might be serene like a duck is, but underneath the water paddling 100 miles an hour, totally stressed, and you wouldn't know. My mum's a high S. Now she got. She came to us 5 years ago and told us that she had a brain tumour, stage 4. And we asked, how long have you known about this? And she goes, about 5 years. I've got 5 years to go. And we were mortified as a family because we're like, why didn't you tell us earlier? And luckily she's still with us now and she's working through it. But for me as a son, I was very hurt by this because I felt that it was something as a family it should have been shared. But for her, she wanted to protect the family by not getting us stressed about her. That was how she saw it, which to me was like, that's insane. But for her, it was as maternal instinct, some people might say, is to protect the family from things that they can't do anything about. And so that so there's that underlying need to serve for the high S. In fact, as a manager, one of the key words that you can use to get the best out of the high S is usually, can you help me? I need some help. Help is a lovely word for the high S to hear because they can actually want to serve and be of benefit assisting you. So as I said, the nice people. Loyalty is very important. I've had some people that, and loyalty sometimes to their own detriment in a relationship or in a work environment. They can stay in a situation longer than is really quite beneficial to them. It might be more detrimental to stay there. But that their biggest fear is change. So changing for change's sake will freak them out. That's why I say big projects work pretty well with them, because they get energy from completing a big project. They also appear patient and relaxed, and they value long-term relationships. And if you go against them, they can be your own worst enemy. They'll be the bunny boilers if you break their trust. Trust is very important with this behavioural profile, as is closure, so completing projects. What do you think some of the values of a high S to the team might be?
Maintain continuity.
Stability.
Yeah, dependable. Good. Yeah,
Supportive.
Very good. Supportive, yep, very good.
And probably nurturing.
Nurturing, yep.
Calming.
Patient, yes. Empathetic, good at reconciling factions and calming and stabilizing, very true. I said before, they're loyal. They will work hard for a leader and a cause. Great listener, dependable. They're also quite logical and stepwise thinkers. You could say they're good at troubleshooting. So becoming a programmer, for example, could be quite good, because they have to look through the spaghetti of stuff to get things done. Essendon Football Club. I don't know if you're into footy, but before the drug saga, they were all high. I went to see them, and they were actually majority of their players were all high S's. There were no standout Dermot Brereton type attention-seeking players. They were all there for the team, and they're working hard for a leader and a cause, which sometimes meant that if the leader said do this, they all followed without too much thinking. So could get yourself in trouble too. They will finish tasks that they start. So one of the things as a manager you should never do with a high S is change the task halfway through, unless you've got a bloody good reason. Because they will get very upset by it. They'll put all their energy into doing the project, and then you've just changed the goalpost on them, and I get quite frustrated by that, more than other behavioural profiles. Good. So I'll just quickly, I shall skip this video, because I think, would you say they're extroverted or introverted type of people?
Introverted.
Yeah, a bit shyer, that's right. People or task orientated?
Task.
Probably a combination, but mostly people. In fact, the high D and the high S are exact opposites of each other. High D being task orientated and fast is the exact opposite of a high S being, as we saw before in the slide. We're on slide 41 right now, so excuse me, I'll just tap you back. I'll just stress you all out. Hopefully no one's got the picture I had before at the start is what I'm trying to get to. This one here. This is a really interesting picture, because you can see the diagonal line. The opposite of the driver is the steady. The high D is the steady behavioural profile. And the opposite of the compliance person is the influencer. The opposite of the accountant is the attention seeker. So what does that mean? When you're managing staff, the two biggest conflicts that you'll continually see within your workplace will be the behavioural profiles on the diagonals confronting each other. The salesperson, who might be the influencer, wants to get the job done, doesn't want to worry about the paperwork, will annoy the compliance finance person who's getting his paperwork half done and the I's not dotted and the T's not crossed. And they'll be forever at each other's throats trying to send things back. The driver, the high D, will be frustrated with a high S, because the high S doesn't show any sense of urgency. It seems to be quite calm when things are all quite stressful, because we need to get things going faster. The high S will be annoyed by the driver. He'll feel like they're being bullied by the Donald Trump. So there'll be and perhaps subtext to every conversation between those two, where one of them's getting frustrated with the other. There's a sense of bias. They think the other person's incompetent. They're not incompetent. They're just playing to their strengths. And the best way you can have a company, I believe, is to have a combination of all behavioural profiles within the team. So you've got your own weaknesses balanced by the strengths of other behavioural profiles. So you're not forced to be the accountant if you're not of that mindset. You're not forced to be the steady person who's trying to complete the task if your mindset is to knock down doors and move on to the next thing. So you're balancing your behavioural profile strengths. And when I talk about adapting to behavioural profiles, I still mean you should not change your behavioural profile in the long term. It's just circumstantially. I'm not wanting you to become a different person. In fact, if anything, I'd rather you become more yourself and put yourself in positions where you can actually leverage your behavioural profile strengths. Okay, so back to where we were. How do you know when they're stressed?
Emotional.
How do you know when
They get emotional?
They'd probably go really quiet.
Go quiet.
Yeah, they would. They would actually go really quiet. Why? Why do you think they would go quiet?
Because they like to appear calm and they don't want to stress anybody else out.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Because they know underneath it all, they are a torrent of emotion. And if they let it all out, it's like a superhero. All of a sudden, the whole world will get destroyed because they've got so much suppressed emotion that'll pop out. When it comes out, if it does come out, it'll come out bang like a snap, and they'll just throw their hands in the air and just go. There'll be some point where they'll just enough is enough, and they'll just snap. And trying to get them to turn back and change their mind, too late. Decision's been made. You had your chance. And I've had situations in recruitment where I've had a developer and a business owner come head to head with different behavioural profiles, literally not understanding that one's a high D and one's a high S. And the owner of the business would come into the office of the high S, slap him on the back and drop a few F-bombs and try to motivate him by trying to raise the energy in the room. But the high S would get totally frustrated and annoyed and wouldn't say a word, but would just go into the shell and try to get his work done. And then eventually this would go on for a year or two until a high S would say, I've had enough, and you would just throw your hands in the air and quit. And the high D would never saw it coming, because a high D is more task orientated, not people orientated, so he isn't picking up so much the signals. And the high S is expecting that person to understand what's going on and read his mind, basically, when they're not showing any emotion, so it's hard. So when they go quiet, you know you're in trouble. So, if you're managing a high S, what do you think the best style would be? Would it be to send an email, pick up the phone, go to their desk, or take them out of the office? What would be a good way to communicate with them?
I think talk to them over an email, because they like that people connection to a certain degree.
I'd say yes. I'd say certainly they do like the people connection to a degree. You're right.
Ask them to talk to you and then shut up and let them talk.
Yep, that's true. True. Usually in a meeting, they're the last person that will contribute, because they want to see what's going on with the rest of the room first. They don't want to take over the room, if you like. So getting them to contribute is like getting blood out of a stone. But once they start talking and they feel comfortable and it's safe, yeah, not a problem. I'd suggest you go and talk to them at the desk. If you're going to show them a piece of software instead of talking through an email, if you've got the opportunity, go and actually get to know them as a person. And don't go, when you have a conversation with them as a manager, straight into work, which can be frustrating for many managers. But the high S wants to be treated as a human being, as we all do, but the high S is looking more for a leader and a cause to actually come behind that they trust. And that leader will generally know about them as a human being, might know who their families are, might know a bit more about what's important to them. Now, there's a bit more humanity in dealing with a high S, if you like, than a task-orientated manager might expect. So, in the buying style of a high S is usually it's highly about trust, and you can't sell to a high S. You can't tell them or be a hard salesperson. If you come across as a salesperson to them, they're going to feel they're being sold to, and the answer you'll get is no. It's about them having to trust you as a salesperson, so you having to listen and asking questions and getting to know them before you actually propose a solution or a product to what you've got going. If you just come in and say you should buy this and come across as a high I behavioural profile, you might lose them pretty quickly because they feel like you don't understand them before you propose. How do you think they might handle change? Do they like change or hate change?
I think you'd need to prepare them that change is coming.
Yeah, very true. Very true. In fact, the biggest business for change management in Australia centres around this behavioural profile. 6 months in advance of putting the seed in there, we're going to make a change and this is why, and then you gently, it's not a shock to them because if it's a shock, they'll shut down. So they need to understand the reason. They need to be prepared in their mind about what's going on. And how do you think, you might say they're very loyal to their suppliers as well. So they're quite hard to change suppliers, unlike the high S, who if someone has a bright, shiny light and a cheaper price, they'll flip over. A high S is very loyal to their suppliers. Again, my mum, she has a Hilux ute that she lives on a farm, and she bought that ute about 20 years ago. She's recently got the same model again because she can trust it, but she used to take it to a place in Richmond to get it serviced that used to look after these types of vehicles. Now, she moved out to the country about an hour and a half away, but still she would travel the hour and a half to drop her car off to get serviced at this Richmond-based facility, and then go and grab a coffee and then come back after the car's serviced. And this has been going on for years because she likes take her car there. She likes the owners of the ability of the workshop. She feels that they look after her, they understand her car, etc., and she can trust them. More importantly, now they've changed their business model. They look after prestige vehicles, but still, my mum rocks up in a rusty old Hilux to get it serviced a couple of times a year, and I'm sure they roll their eyes in the back of their mind, and they charge her a fortune for it. But in her mind, it's just she trusts them and she doesn't want to change suppliers. So there's an extreme there as well. So they decorate their office. Family is very important to this behavioural profile. So you might find pictures of the family, relationships, long-term relationships. I said they value. The driving style on the road is very safe. How would you say they would? Their gestures when they're talking, where would their hands be, do you think?
By their side.
By their side, yeah. They don't tend to move them around too much, as you think. Oh, true. Yeah, very good. So they're not like keen poker, showing their tells, if you like. Their goal setting. How would you describe their goals? Are they high risk or low risk?
Low risk.
Very low risk. And you might find they're low risk because they want to avoid conflict in case they don't achieve them in the time frame that you've set. So there'll be a bit of fat in their goals. And as a manager, you need to be aware of that sometimes you need to sit down with them and get them to itemize and to actually be a bit more realistic than what they've given. Now, I'm not saying that their goals are overly low, but they will actually achieve those goals. But sometimes, as a manager, you might want them to do a little bit more because when they set them, they build a bit of fat into it already, and you as a manager might add some extra fat into it, and then they've already you've already blown out a quotation that you might have been a bit skinnier on if you had known that they were already setting that in there. The letter writing style. How would you describe an email from them?
Indirect.
Indirect, yeah.
Polite.
Very indirect. Polite, true, yes. Not wanting to offend, you're right.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's go into having a look at that. Now, by the way, they follow rules. Their stance is usually they're very stagnant, if you might say. They talk on the phone. How would you say they talk on the phone? What would be their style on the phone?
Soft spoken.
Yep, true. They'll be interested in you, and they'll be hoping that you'll be interested in them as well on a personal level. So don't start with business. Okay. So what kind of presentation do you think might work best for them if you're in sales? What are they looking for? Factual, yeah, they like proof and statistics. Very good.
Are relaxed and calm, lay the
Good.
facts out, make it clear what it is they're buying.
Less showmanship.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, very true. Take it slow, answer all their questions. Sometimes people breeze over questions too quickly and they kind of invalidate the question that's been asked, and they'll get offended by that. So earn their trust and friendship, and repeat visits is important. It's never going to be a sale on the first one for these people. You've got to come back and show that you're a stand-up person and they can trust you. Statements that motivate. You might say, I feel that you're open to a number of possibilities and I want to recommend this plan of action to you. So it's more of a soft sell, and instead of trying to say pushy, if you like. Let's have a look at their email. Here's an email of a typical high S, an extreme high S. So please, if you're a high S, don't get too offended. What are some elements we can see in this style?
Asking questions.
Yeah.
Involving everyone without identifying individuals. True.
Hi, everyone, because I don't want to miss anybody. I don't want to offend anybody by misspelling their name or whatever. True. Good. What else?
They're being a bit wishy-washy about the afternoon or tomorrow.
Yeah. When's the meeting?
Yeah.
They're wanting someone else to make the decision, it appears. They don't want to be seen as pushy. And so for some people, who likes to receive this type of email?
No, thanks.
Okay. Anybody like it at all?
I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I'm
you're right
okay with it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And what do you like about it?
It's inclusive.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Good. Yeah, and it's quite polite, isn't it? It's almost trying to lead from the rear, but without taking control.
It's providing assurance that we're all in this together. It's okay. Come to the meeting. It'll be tomorrow. Bring your ideas. Let's have a chat.
I think a high D would be really annoyed by this email. But a high I and a high I would really like it because it's collaborative and they've thought about me.
Yep. So you're right. The high I is people orientated, so it has that has it in common with the high S as well. The high I will want the high S to move a bit faster and pick up the pace, and the high S will think the high I is being a bit too pushy when doing that. But you're right, there is no actual time for this meeting, and some people might say is a bit, well, I'm not even going to show up for this meeting because I don't know what's it about. I don't know what it is. It seems like a waste of time.
Yeah.
All right. So in closing, or the sales styles that work well with a high S, you've got to think about their trust. Trust is really important with them. What is a kind of known sales gambit that works well with people who need to trust something before they buy it?
Testimonials.
Yeah. Reviews.
Testimonials, yep.
Yeah.
True. Testimonials are people they know or trust. So a family member saying it, or a mate.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yep, very good. So the puppy dog sale, a technique many of you might know. In the days when you could sell puppies in shops, there's the mum and dad and the little Jimmy, the son, go past, little Johnny go past a pet store, and there's a little puppy in the window, and the salesman's leaning on the door, watching the family come past, and little Johnny runs up to the window and plants his hands on the window and starts looking at the puppy, and they go, "Mummy, mummy, daddy, daddy, I really want a puppy. I really want a puppy. I really want a puppy. It's so cute. Can we have one?" And mum and dad just roll their eyes, going, "I am not picking up dog poo all weekend." And the owner of the pet store, you know, we'll be sitting there watching this in the background, going, "Yep, yep." And he would go to the parents after a couple of seconds. "Yeah, I know, dogs are hard work. You got to look after them. You got to feed them. You got to do this. You got that." But he looks like he's having so much fun. He seems he likes that dog. Like, I tell you what, it's Friday. Why don't you take the dog home for the weekend and have some fun with him? If you don't like it, bring it back on Monday. And of course, you guessed it. So they take the dog home, and what happens? Johnny plays with the puppy dog for about half an hour, then gets bored and goes off and does something else. And the puppy's left there, and mum and dad start bonding with the puppy and playing with it and fall in love with it, and they can't take him back. So it's called the puppy dog sale. Okay, so the try before you buy is another way of saying it. So you're getting experiences of touching it, feeling it, playing with it, getting to know the product before you commit 100% to it, knowing that you can back out if it's not for you. So in the today's internet now, we've really come a full circle with how we send stuff back. So we can send things back in the mail a lot quicker than we could ever do before, supposedly. And our warranties are a lot more tighter than they were before as well, where you've got a bit more time to get things back if you're not happy with them. So that think about it stage is really important. They need to have a chance to think about things. You can't push them into a sale. They've got to have a chance to let it sit in their stomach, in their guts, if you like. So in recruitment, for example, when I hire staff myself, I don't, on my first interview, expect anyone to make a decision of hiring. In fact, what I do, I say to the people I interview, say, "Look, I want you to go home, think about it, let it sit in your stomach. I'm going to do the same thing tonight. We'll come back tomorrow, and if we're on the right page, we'll pick it up and take it the next step further. But let's just not rush too fast into it. It's a big long-term decision. I don't want you to make a decision that you're not going to be happy with." So that think about it part is really, really important for them. Hence, it can be quite tiring for a high I or a high D because they want the quick sale, and quite frustrating for them. But it is the process that they have to go through before they can actually feel happy to commit to purchasing something. So unlike the high I, which is very much an emotional buyer, well, the high S is as well, but they just take a little bit longer to commit to bigger things. So managing them, how would you manage to get the best out of them as a manager? What are some of the things you could do?
Give them some ownership.
Yep, very true. Good.
Validate them.
Validate them. Yep. Good. 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 Would you give them
stretch a bit further than they would expect for themselves?
Yes, exactly. Encourage their contribution, particularly in meetings. involve them in long-term planning because they're the long-term. What about clearly explaining upcoming changes so they can be prepared, and of course making an effort to get to know them and their needs, which is sometimes for many managers when you're in the trenches a thing that you haven't really got time to do, particularly in times where there's a crisis going on, like COVID, for example. So getting to know people is really a long-term play, but it comes back in spades with a high S, actually spending time with them as a person. And of course, allowing them to finish tasks they've started is also very important. All right. So, last mob. Who do you reckon these guys might be? We're left with a high C, I think. What would be something that describes these?
Methodical.
Methodical, yeah, good. Okay, well, let's have a look.
Empathy, maybe?
Yep, very good. Some people might say they're a bit like perfectionists in their game, and sometimes that perfectionists can come across as they're everything's black or white, and so they can become everything by the book and a need for procedures. So that can, for many people, their biggest fear. What do you think the high C's biggest fear is?
Being wrong.
The highly compliant.
Not knowing what the rules are.
Being wrong.
Not knowing what the rules are? Yeah, being wrong. That's right.
Yeah,
making a mistake. Yeah. So they've got a massive fear of making a mistake, and hence why they gravitate towards procedures, doing things by the book, and having high attention to detail. And in sales, they'll expect a lot of proof and evidence of an idea or a product before they'll go ahead and buy it or get involved in it. So testimonials are extremely important to them. They want to see things that have been done before using the same method. So they're not very innovative. They want to see tried and true methods, things that they can see statistics and facts. Now, sometimes that can be, in the real estate, for example, you could spend hours analysing, days and months analysing the property market before you make a decision, because you want to make the right decision, you want to buy in the right spot, the right house, and then all of a sudden you've missed the property boom because of you're too slow making a decision because you've overanalyzed. And the high D will be happy to make a decision quickly, and they know that 50% of their decisions will be wrong. But it's about, and that's common in business, where 50% of your decisions are wrong, including your hiring decisions. But what makes a great company, as Greg Carlson will say, is correcting that wrong decision as quick as possible. So if you hired the wrong person for the role, make the change straight away before you keep that wrong person in the role long term and demotivates everybody else around the team, and you have a loss of opportunity in the business because you hired the wrong person. So it's about correcting fast, where a high C generally will want to make sure that everything is right before they make a decision. Sometimes you can't know everything. Most times you can't. So there's a bit of a payoff there if you're a manager, to push them to make a decision. What do you think the value of a highly compliant person might be to the team?
They want the whole team to not make mistakes.
Yeah. And sometimes, as I said, they can be a bit, they talk about realistic in their world. So it's maintain very high standards. Quality is really important for them. What else would be of importance? What other values could they bring to the team?
Attention to detail.
Yeah, attention to detail, good. They are task orientated. They're also actually quite formal or diplomatic, as in they don't want to, there's a diplomatic meaning there's a process of communicating. So in their letter writing, you'll see it's quite very formal. They pay attention to the small details, and they'll ask good questions too. And sometimes they will say no quite a fair bit, which will annoy people, particularly when they're stressed, but they'll say no because not because they want to be painful, but it's because they're not going to make a change without getting all the facts together first and waste money on something. So they'll clarify, get information, criticise, define and test everything before they make a decision. So they're very much, you might say, the devil's advocate is probably not the right word, but they will certainly ask the right questions before you make a decision. So they, for a high D who's trying to charge forward and get things done and has lofty dreams, the high C will bring those dreams down to reality in their mind. So won't try to stop the dreams, but will actually say, you can't afford that right now. So you can't go down that track unless you get some income. Where are you going to get the income from? So it actually saves the company by making wrong decisions and make sure that the plans are in place before you charge down a certain route. Extroverted or introverted, do you think?
Introvert.
Good. People or task?
Task.
Tasking.
Good. Direct or indirect?
Direct.
Good. When you're talking to them, what are they looking for in the conversation?
Facts.
Facts, yeah, something they can rely on. Good. How do you know when they're stressed?
You probably don't.
To a certain degree, you don't. Yeah, they'll say no a lot when they're stressed. They'll get stubborn. They'll just block. Their buying style. What kind of things do they buy?
Practical things.
Yeah, practical things. Okay.
High quality.
High quality. Yes, very true. Tried and true things that other people have got, and then you can see whether it's worked or not. So how do you think they might handle change? Do they love change, hate change?
I love it.
Don't like it.
Driving style on the road. What car do you think they might drive? The extreme high S, high C.
Yaris.
Have you got one of you? A Volvo, some people might say.
Volvo, yeah.
What's the modern
The
Volvo
safest
equivalent?
car.
Good, very good. And these are people with the ones that frustrate you because they create more accidents because they're sticking to the speed like 5 kilometres below what it is. Everyone's trying to go around them. Good. Gestures. Where would their hands be when they're talking? Or you're talking?
In their lap.
In their lap. Yeah, it could be in the lap. It could be crossed. They're considering. They're like, let me think about it. And they might find they're actually leaning back a bit, not forward, charging forward. They're like, let me think about this. I'm considering this. Don't rush me. So they're distancing themselves from the discussion so they can actually think through it. How do you think they might decorate their office?
Minimalist.
Functionally.
Very organised.
Functional. Graphs, yeah, very organised, very, very organised. Being a perfectionist, it's got to be colour-coded, statistics and graphs and things and numbers. Good. Goals, how would you describe their goals?
Realistic.
Clear.
Realistic,
with a plan on how to get there.
Plan, yeah, and not high risk, I would say. There'd be actual. Let me explain this another way. If they're a finance person and they're trying to give a goal to the sales team, they will give the sales team sometimes another goal because they're thinking that the sales team can actually achieve it, at least half of it, and it'll be enough. So, and that'll demotivate the sales team if the sales team can see it as unrealistic. But in their mind, they're actually trying to set a safe goal with some fat in it, and sometimes too much. Letter writing. How would you describe their letter writing style?
Formal.
Yep, no fun. Rules. They love rules. They're low risk, and they talk on the phone. They're very task orientated, and sometimes they might come across as very dry or mechanical, robotic. in some circumstances. Very much precision is what they're looking for. So they'll be a good listener as well. If you're selling to them or you're a manager of them and you're trying to get them involved in a new idea, what do you think you need to do? What do you need to provide to them?
Facts.
Very true. Lots of proof. Good. What else?
Lots of detail.
Yeah. True. And also they need the time to absorb the detail as well. So you've got to give them a bit of space to think through the mechanics of it. Instead of just giving them a bright, shiny light, you've got to actually explain, this is the light, this is where it's going to be placed, and here's a picture of it. How does that work with what you want? No small talk is another thing too. They're not interested in the small chit chat. They're about the facts. And again, you've got to answer all the questions. Statements that might motivate could be something like, there's a great amount of input into this idea, which ensures its quality. Once you've taken the time to examine the facts, see it's right for you. With something as important as this, let's set up several sessions where we can examine all possible alternatives. So you're talking more about getting them to look at the facts of the situation. Their ideal environment in a company. Now, I've seen many organisations put these types of people become the. They might be involved in unions, for example, or there might be the best person to write your health and safety policies and procedures, because they won't let anything slip through. As a manager, what do you think the ideal environment might be? What could you say about the assignments that you need to give them?
Structured.
Yep, good. So they can be followed through to their completion. Long term, very good. And probably technical or task orientated, specialized areas. I like specialized areas where they can specialize in something and be a perfectionist or an expert in it. And you probably find a space where noise and people are at a minimum. The exact opposite of the high I. A close relationship with a small group of people. And an environment where quality and standards are really important. So if you're going to sell them on a new idea or a new plan, talk about quality and standards about getting things right and perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but closest as possible to perfect. That's where you might start at with your angle. Let's have a look at the letter writing. Oh, I've gone a bit too fast. Here we go. This is an extreme example of a high C email.
Like the full formal name.
Committee meeting. Oh, Stanley. Oh, committee meeting members. Yes.
Both. Yeah.
Good. Good. Now, when's the meeting?
There isn't one.
That will be decided when the facts have been gathered and considered,
yes.
And then the schedule will be decided.
Yes. So come and see me if you got any. Come and see me one-on-one before the meeting if you need something to discuss, and then we'll have a meeting after that. So it's kind of like two meetings because they don't want to be put on the spot in the actual meeting. They want to have all their facts in the row before the meeting and no surprises. Very formal, please. And again, it's about me and you and you. So it's task orientated and it can come across as very, compare that to the high I email you saw before, the red one and the blue one with a high S. It can be seen as a bit formal or no life in it, some people might say.
Bit unemotional.
Yeah, it's straight to the point. But it is functional, it is practical, and it's sufficient in some respects because it's you're not going to have a long meeting when you get to me. Anybody who's going to make it longer needs to come to me beforehand so we can have a meeting when we do have it. Who would like to get this type of email?
I don't mind it.
You don't mind? Good, good.
Me.
Anybody not so? You do? Good. What do you like about it?
Gives me time to prepare.
Exactly. Good. Good. Okay. So the closes that work well with a high C are the same closes that work with a high S. There's the puppy dog close and the try before you buy, which is kind of like a deposit. Which behavioural profile do you think of the four would best describe this character? A D, I, S, or a C?
D.
D.
D, yeah, dominating. Good. He's showing his love for his country by getting the order in the universe. Good. What about this one? D, I, S, or C?
S.
S.
I was going to say an
It's actually more
I.
of a no, yeah. I guess he's a bit random, talks a lot, but he's actually a C. He's a high fear of everything. So they're going to shut down the main reactor. It will be destroyed before this is madness. It's really saying that you shouldn't be doing this. It's everything will fail. What about this one? This is a tricky one. Luke.
I.
He's actually more the yes. So he's wanting to help people. Yeah, he's more of a martyr. This guy's your I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my last slide, this one here, and this is a really, really important one. I can't stress how important it is because what, as a manager, we want to do is keep people in that centre cooperation zone to get the best out of them. If they start getting stressed, they start sneaking out to the peripheries. So you can imagine in the top right-hand corner quadrant, in the green, you've got get it done. Now that is a high D. So the high D is focusing on getting it done. If you come into their office, all they want to hear is, how do we get it done? The high C on the left, all they want to do is, how do we get it right? And the high S on the bottom left is, how do we get along with everybody? So there's no conflict and we're all working together as a team. And the last one on the bottom right-hand corner is get appreciated, which of course is a high I. Now, as you start, if you don't give that to the individual, like in the high D, if you don't focus on getting it done, they're going to get quite stressed. And in being stressed, they start behaving by taking more control of the situation, which is moving out toward the periphery of the behavioural circles. And as you can see in the other behaviours, they might go towards perfection or approval or seeking attention. If they don't get it initially, they'll try harder to get it and harder and harder. And the extreme part is if they don't get what they want, eventually they could sneak into what we see in the red zones are bad behaviours. Now, we've given them some words on the edges that might make more sense if we work through them, but the worst behaviour there in all those is actually what we call the sniper, which is essentially the gossiper, which is tension. They will take on pulling people down behind your back. So at the water cooler, they'll be saying snide remarks about somebody behind their back and setting the seeds within the organisation that all things aren't right with that person. So they become the centre of attention because they're spreading the gossip. And then if they're not the boss and they've been passed over from a promotion, for example, you might see them sniping at the boss behind in meetings or behind the back. So that could be the high D trying to take control, but not being able to get it. So there's all different ways of handling those bad behaviours to bring them back to the cooperation zone. Each one's different. It's like dialing a phone. If you get one number wrong or out of order, you'll make it worse. So in behavioural profiles, our game as a manager or a salesperson is to focus on the cooperation zone when we're dealing with our staff or customers, so that we're addressing what they're looking for straight up first. And that means many times adapting our conversation to address that instead of charging into it when we might want to charge into it to get it done ourselves. We might find we're throwing petrol on the fire instead of water. So, yeah, that's a handy graph for you all to take on. I'm going to send you a copy of this meeting in a video. And it looks like it's gone overboard a bit. I'm sorry about that. We had a bit to get through and I went a bit over time. Thanks for your patience there. Has anybody got any questions they might ask, or if they'd like, and they don't ask now, I'm happy to take them afterwards as well.
Yeah, g'day, Daryl.
Get Rowan.
Hey, mate. No, look, no questions. Just want to say, yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was good. Definitely taken some things out of it as well, just to go back with the team. So, no, it was good, mate, and look forward to receiving a copy of it as well, and might even pass it on to a couple of the managers and whatnot, and get them to have a good look at it as well. So, cheers, mate.
Oh, good on you, Rowan. Thanks, mate. Good feedback. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers.
All right, I guess we'll stop it there, folks. I'll get that through to you, and we'll have another one of these presentations in, I think, about another 4 weeks' time too. So if you're interested, you could pass on this presentation to your friends, or get them to do the DISC behavioural profile as well for free. All right, onwards and upwards. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Daryl.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.